Senator Ludwig. Senator Singh.
Ms Bassey, you said that you put options to the minister.
Mm-hmm.
Could you detail those options to the committee?
As I said, they were a whole range of options. So in terms of...
Well, could you provide what those options were?
Senator, I can just say we provided, the advice we provide to the minister is advice to the minister. I can just assure the committee that we provided a range of options to the minister.
Okay, was one of the options to give all the funds back to the Australia Council?
Senator, everything
Was that one of the options?
we went through all the options.
So was that one of the options?
All those options were canvassed.
Okay, what's the administrative and overheads cost of administering this new Catalyst fund?
Most of it we have absorbed within our current resources, Senator, and I think so you need to also remember that it's not just administering Catalyst, the programs we've also taken on delivering Visions of Australia and Festivals of Australia. So the total additional staff for administering the 3 programs is 3 full-time equivalent staff that we've taken on, and we've also reapplied a number of existing staff to those 3 programs.
Okay, so 3 full-time new positions.
Mm-hmm.
And are any of those positions coming over from the Australia Council?
They're not people coming over from the Australia Council. Okay.
Any other administrative or infrastructure funds needed to administer these programs?
Not significant ones, no, Senator.
Okay. Can you take on notice the cost of the overheads, so administrative and workforce costs in administering the Catalyst program?
Certainly.
There was 148 small to medium Australian arts companies and 28 major organisations currently funded by the Australia Council. So you said earlier that the priority with this Catalyst fund is small to medium. So what protections are in place to ensure that those small to mediums receive the majority of this new Catalyst fund?
Well, as I've said previously, that will be looked at in the overall balance of the grants. So we will be looking at...
But are you using any guidelines?
Yes, we're using the guidelines for the Catalyst program, Senator, which are available on the website.
Yes, but when you say look at...
Pardon?
When you say they'll be looked at, what does that actually mean as far as, the assurance, the stability, the certainty that obviously the small to medium organisations in the country are looking for, and what you were saying you're prioritising, how is looked at going to give them that kind of stability and assurance?
Well, Senator, assessors will be asked to consider a range of things. They will be asked to assess each application against the criteria that are in the guidelines, and so it's part of the assessment of the program.
Okay.
So
who are
against
the
the guidelines? We have around over 300 people on the independent register for assessors.
So do you pick some of those? Or?
That's right. So it works in a similar way to the way the Australia Council does it, and also the way states and territories work.
When did you call for assessors? When was it?
The original call for assessors was... No, it's not it. The 7th of August.
Okay, when it was still under the MPEA.
Yeah.
Have any been
draft guidelines?
Have any been approved?
They have, and they will hopefully be going up on the web this week.
And they've been notified?
Yes.
And there's 300 of those? Right. The MPEA guidelines indicated that some successful funding applicants would not be publicly announced. So will all the funding decisions made under Catalyst be publicly announced?
Yes, Senator. You may be aware of the Commonwealth Grants Rules and Guidelines. That reference was to there, but I will actually just detail, and this is law under the PGPA Act as a requirement, that grant guidelines must be made publicly available, that entities must report all grants awarded on their website, and they must report on the whole of Australian Government register once that's operational. There may be circumstances, which is what that was the reference in the original guidelines that I know caused some concerns. These are very rare, and it says, so the grant guidelines say there may be circumstances where officials determine that public reporting of grants in accordance with it is contrary to the Privacy Act, other statutory requirements or the specific terms of a grant agreement. In these circumstances, the relevant officials must publish as much information as legally possible. For example, it may be possible to omit the name of the grant recipient and other personal information that may contravene the Privacy Act, but report other grant details.
So nothing's changed?
No. Can I just explain, Senator? When this occurred, I did ask someone, because this has never occurred in the arts space before, and this was using a template while we were in the Attorney General's department. The only examples, this is extremely rare, the only examples where that has been used that someone could tell me was where an individual receives grant funding perhaps to appear before a Royal Commission. So that would be that Mary Smith, her name would not be published because she had received some grants. That is not likely or is not relevant to the situation that we're in. But that is the sort of example, and that is what that is aimed at in terms of that. The new guidelines make it extremely clear that all grants will be published within the statutory 14 days on the department's grant register.
All right, well, look, I'll just finally end with this question. I'm still trying to come to terms with how this new Catalyst Fund is going to ensure stability and certainty for the small to medium arts organisations in this country, and I'm still really unclear on that. I think you agree that the majority of arts organisations are in that space in Australia. I think between 2010 and 12, small to medium companies produced 2,897 new Australian works, which equated to 88%, while majors produced 299 new works. So I'm trying to understand how this new funding system will be structured to protect those Australian works by ensuring that small to medium receive something akin to that 88% funding. It operates two ways. So returning the funding, $8 million a year to the Australia Council. So first of all, the small to medium organisations, those 148 organisations, have their funding certain till December 2016. This funding that has been returned to the Australia Council immediately will enable them to increase that pool of funding available, which will increase the operational certainty for those organisations. What will happen? Well, it's still a reduction to the Australia Council. It's a huge reduction. They've lost $104 million. They've had returned $32 million. Can I just correct, Senator? The $104 million that includes the Visions of Australia program, the Festivals of Australia program, and the Major Festivals Initiative. But those three programs are those three programs, whether they are delivered by the Ministry or the Australia Council. They were not operational funding for the small to medium sector. So they, in a sense, are not in play. What we're talking about is the $80 million a year. That is the figure that we're talking about. Sorry, the $20 million, the $80 million over 4. So what this is aiming to do is to provide that certainty and enable the Australia Council to provide certainty, and in its press statement it has clearly stated that it is able to do that with this funding returned. Then through the project funding is by making it very explicit that priority will be given to projects from small to medium arts companies, that will again provide them with greater clarity in terms of eligibility and where they can actually come to the Catalyst program for project funding. Okay, so in answering Senator Billick's question earlier, then, it does seem then that over and above this kind of assurance you're providing on behalf of the government in relation to small to medium, that it's individuals then that are going to potentially completely lose out in this space. Because there's not enough funding there then for both Australia Council and Catalyst to provide for all of these small to medium organisations and individuals, which individuals can only go through Australia Council anyway. There's just not enough there because there is still a funding shortfall.
Look, Senator, I'm very confident that the Australia Council is going to maximise the funding that it will be able to make available to individuals. And as I've said, just because an individual cannot apply to Catalyst, it does not mean that individuals cannot benefit from Catalyst under the auspices of an organisation that can apply for the establishment of fellowship programs, residencies, cultural exchanges, and they themselves then, who have the expertise to actually fund individual artists, are absolutely able to do that. The only simple difference is that an individual artist can apply to the Australia Council, as has always been the case, and the decision has been made not to make Catalyst eligible for them because that had always been Australia Council business and is Australia Council expertise.
All of this has always been Australia Council business.
Pardon?
Multi-mediums can apply through the Australia. It's all been Australia Council business, and you've moved some of it offshore,
Senator,
and you've excluded individuals.
Senator, that's actually not the case.
You've excluded individuals.
Senator,
Good thing we don't have a Van Gogh amongst us or something. Well, we would never know. That's correct.
Senator, that's not the case. The ministry has always funded a number of programs. We fund the regional arts fund. We fund regional arts through the Regional Arts Fund. We fund the Anzac Arts and Culture Fund. We fund the public lending rights programs. We fund the Cultural Gifts program. We fund the National Cultural Touring Institutions.
We don't need to hit the list. We haven't got much time left.
Sure.
And I know that certainly Senator Ludman and I have more questions.
How does the Catalyst program differ from the MPEA?
Well, we've already had that.
No, I'm asking that question.
Well, Senator, I'm happy to...
Senator,
No, I'm asking...
Senator Billick asked
No,
it
I'm
and they
asking-
went through it in detail.
Thank you. I'm asking for it.
Okay, Senator. Firstly, in the amount of money available, it's 12...
other than the amount of money.
Okay. The streams have been changed. The endowment incentives, the feedback we received on that was that the word endowment was rather confusing, so that has been clarified to be partnerships and collaborations, and that has a focus on ambitious medium and long-term projects that complement other avenues of support, which includes all sorts of fundraising. Partnerships don't have to be confirmed at the time of application, and successful applicants have 6 months from signing the funding agreement to come back to us with their partners. So changing that and making that clearer. Strategic initiatives was in the old guideline. That has now been clarified and confirmed to be innovation and participation. That has a new focus on innovative projects. It also has a focus on participation and access. It clarifies the importance of regional access as well as access by disadvantaged groups and also people with barriers to access. That is different. The limit in the old guidelines, there was a limit of 1 project per stream per year. The new guidelines have no limit on the number of applications. The original guidelines had no auspicing arrangements. The new guidelines have auspicing included for unincorporated entities, business units of local government with arts and cultural heritage purposes, and that reflects consultation feedback that small groups should be able to be supported. In terms of eligibility of what's funded, it includes all art forms and makes it absolutely clear that that's the case. Okay. There is as part of the feedback, the original guidelines had no upper cap, and we received a lot of feedback that there should be an upper cap to provide guidance for applicants. So there is now an indicative cap of $500,000 in the new guidelines.
All right, thank you. I think I've heard the rest.
All right, thank you, Senator Singh. Thank you. Senator